Hey, this is Mike Lemery. Thanks for tuning into the Slow Baja. This podcast is powered by Tequila Fortaleza, handmade in small batches, and hands down, my favorite tequila. You know, I've long said it, ask your doctor if Baja's right for you. If you've been hankering to get down to Slow Baja, you gotta check out the Adventures tab at slowbaja.com. All my trips are there. From my vintage extravaganzas in fall and summer to my fantastic winter expedition that's open to 4x4s of any age. Now, of course, you can bring something old, but this trip is perfect for modern rigs. Got a go-fast camper or a rooftop tent on your taco? Let's go! Bring your gal, bring your best Baja bud, bring your dog. This Slow Baja adventure is for you. We've got whale watching, we've got beach camping. Raul at Rancho La Bellota is going to roast a lamb on a spit that will change your life. You know, I take care of breakfast and dinner on these trips, and it really does take the sting out of camping. Great food, private campsites, ranch stays, good dirt roads, and extraordinary people are the ingredients that make up a Slow Baja expedition. To find your trip, check out the Adventures tab at slowbaja.com. But don't delay. All my Slow Baja expeditions sell out. So you got questions? Hit that contact button. Ready to book? Use that Slow Baja boarding pass at slowbaja.com/shop. And I look forward to seeing you in Baja soon. And folks, just so you know, I am always here for you for your Baja trip planning questions. One question, 100 questions. The easy way to get me is slowbaja.com/contact. And if you'd like to go to Baja and you don't want to go by yourself, you don't have a vintage vehicle, my winter trip doesn't work out for you, I am happy to talk to you about organizing and leading a private guided tour. I've done it. I've loved it. The pictures are over there at slowbaja.com/adventures, and you can check them out. And if you've got some questions, let's talk. Thanks for tuning in to today's Slow Baja. This intro's coming to you, may sound a little different. It's coming to you from Chinandega, Nicaragua. That's right. I'm down here watching my son play baseball. He's in the Nicaraguan Winter League. Bobby Baja is catching for Los Tigres de Chinandega. We've got a rain out today, which has allowed me to get a little work done, stay inside, get some things done. And I hope you enjoy this podcast. My heaping dose of gratitude today goes out to Barbara Rainey and the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame, the board of directors, the voting members. Well, they bestowed a 2024 Industry Impact Award on Slow Baja in the adventure category, and I am honored and humbled. Got to Las Vegas last week. Had a chance to see some Slow Baja alums, Sal Fish, Kurt Leduc. Got a chance to record a few interviews and picked up that award on stage wearing my pith helmet and my suit. I gotta say, wow, that was truly an amazing experience. All right, today's show, Maurice Merrick, he hosts that fabulous Horsepower Heritage podcast. Great stories about the people behind the machines. He came on the trip with Derek Boycks, who is the Slow Baja, Baja is Right for You awardee for the Slow Baja Vintage Expedition. And this recording was done 10 o'clock at night after the Baja Bound finish line fiesta. Probably had a couple of Fortalezas. We were absolutely exhausted, but I think the conversation is a good one. I hope you enjoy it. And without further ado, Maurice Merrick today on the Slow Baja podcast.
This will be the volume that I speak in. And I don't want to pop my peas. I may even move my mic over here. But
Pea popper.
I don't want to be a pea popper I don't want to give you any plosives. Plosives are bad.
Well, I'm glad you're worrying about those things.
Oh, yeah. I always worry about those things.
We're going to get right to it. I'm wearing your glasses. We've got Maurice Merrick of the Horsepower Heritage Podcast talking about pea popping tonight on Slow Baja in Baja with Maurice. And we've had a hell of a good week on the Slow Baja Vintage Expedition. And I just want to say, hey, thanks for being here. Saludos. Let's have a ching with these big dumb glasses.
I'll tell you what, this is a long time coming.
Yeah.
As we take a sip of our beverages.
Our hefty beverages.
But you and I,
next to you here.
You and I have become simpatico over the last, 4 years or so.
Something like that.
And I really... So, for your listeners who may not have heard your appearance on my show...
Well, that's everyone who's listened to my show.
Of course.
I don't know how that podcast is done, but I'm assuming it's done exceptionally well.
Well,
there's been some drinking going on today, folks.
There has been. So you're going to have to forgive us and give us a little latitude on this episode. But I somehow discovered you. I can't even remember how, but I reached out to you, and you were very gracious and came on my show, and we've kind of been pals ever since. But this is actually the first time we've met in person on this trip.
Well, it's
remarkable.
It's interesting that you say that. So the world of podcasting, I don't have any podcast buddies. You are it. And so we're going to have a little love fest here. But we talk with some regularity, and I was just surprised. Like, you know people through their social media, you know people because you call or you text or whatever. But I was honestly delighted to finally frickin' meet you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And we had a great week.
We did, and I felt the same way. And, it's so strange. We live in this digital age where you feel like you know people.
You do.
And the minute I saw you, I just wanted to give you a big hug, which is exactly what I did. And,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know that we're going to do a play-by-play here, but we should, I think, tell people one of the first things that happened when this trip began was that I got deported from Mexico.
Well, I think one of the first things that happened since we turned on the microphones, you took over my podcast.
Oh, my God. I don't want, it's like matter and antimatter colliding here.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
No, honestly, we're just going to have a free-form, fun conversation because I really want to talk to you because you haven't been to Baja in a bit, obviously.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know you needed a frickin' passport, and you didn't read the emails I sent you that said you needed a frickin' passport. And so you showed up, and I was highly distracted, and I will freely take the blame for this. But when you said you didn't have your passport, I got involved with something else, and you followed the entire group up to get your F.M.M. visa. And as a employee of you have a government ID.
Right.
You have a California driver's license. You have a government ID through your work, which we're not going to talk about, but you thought, hey, that's going to work.
Sure. And
then what happened?
Well, it goes without saying that you had a million things on your mind. You've got a big group of people to be responsible for.
And one dumbass.
So
Dumas. The Jacques Cousteau's done. Dumas.
Course, the French.
I never say dumbass, sorry.
Right. Dumas.
So
you got one lunkhead who didn't bring a passport. And it wasn't for lack of reading. I guess I just kind of missed that section of your...
It's going to be more prominent in the next emails for sure.
Your novella of an email.
Oh my
right?
God, isn't that the truth? Sorry, I didn't put it in bullet points for you, pal.
But this brings up a very important point, which is that anyone who travels with Michael Emery needs to be very careful about reading the fine print because there's so much to know in preparation for a slow Baja trip.
But I do try to say that the answers are all there. Like I do feel like I've given you the answer, and I'm not busting your balls, but so unfortunately, in a group of 24 people who all went to get their F.M.Ms at once, for the first time ever, I saw a line to get an F.M.M, which I've never seen before. And then we were in line, so there were approximately 20 or 24 people ahead of us, and then we were in line, and I got some directions. You should come over here. No, you should go over there. And then here we are, and we're standing in line, and our cars are over there. And before you know it, there is a private security guard who, I'm going to just be blunt and said, had a hard on to flex and say, you know what? I am the authority today. You, sir, do not have a passport. I don't care what you have. I am deporting you. So tell me how that went.
Well, there was when we arrived at the port of entry, there was a line of maybe Mexican nationals.
Yeah, folks just off a bus.
Right. So we kind of queued up behind them. And the second that this private security guard saw a bunch of gringos, he started to flex. So he was he primed the pump, right? And by the time we got up to the front, he was pointing at the signs and sort of kind of telling us the rules in Spanish, expecting us to understand. And, I was nonchalant about it. I got to the front of the line and I presented a California ID and another government ID, and they were not impressed. And I was summarily deported from Mexico, which means that I was led around the corner to a long breezeway, and at the end of that 100 yards or so was U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and I had to explain that, I didn't have a passport on me, and the kind young man there said, they've kind of gotten strict lately. And anyway, I was back in the United States. So we came up with Plan B, which is a little bit stealth and a little bit covert, and maybe we don't go into that.
I will say that there was a Plan B, and the Plan B involved, I have some Mexican-American staff who are, Resourceful would be a great first descriptor, and they're fluent in both sides of the culture because they live on the U.S. side, but they were born on the Mexican side, but born in the United States, but to Mexican parents. And they called somebody's wife who smuggled you into the country.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, in the front seat of her nondescript silver sedan.
Yeah. And you know what? We are back in business.
Back in business.
And you're gonna cross the border heading north, and you're gonna get a little lecture for only having a driver's license with you. You're gonna say, I have a passport, and I can't believe that I forgot it. But in the old days when I came to Baja, I didn't have to bring it, and I never thought that through, and I'm sorry. And they'll let you in.
I'm gonna do even less than that. I'm gonna talk as little as possible, and I'm just gonna let them throw whatever they have at me. And
you might have to go to secondary. You might get a lecture.
Which is fine.
But you know what? You'll get back in because that's the law.
I do have birthright citizenship. So
So let's talk about what happened after you got back in this fantastic country. We got onto the trip and got up to, first we stopped for tacos, which was, busy. And then we got up to Raul's Rancho La Bellota. Can you just kind of take the listeners through what it's like? You haven't been to Baja for a bit. You had that stressful thing happen, which was stressful. It was stressful. It was stressful for me, for sure.
Sure. And you, again, you're our fearless leader, and you've got a lot to keep in mind and plan for. But we had a little bit of a frenetic, I would say, journey between the border and Rosarito.
Sure.
Lots of traffic.
Busy border wall.
Right.
All the stuff.
But once we made the turn eastward to Valle de Guadalupe, which is the wine country of Baja, things opened up. It got a lot less hectic. Became very rural. And immediately it was just tranquilo, right?
Tranquilo.
That was the
amigo.
vibe.
It was tranquilo, amigo. Yeah.
And we're climbing. The altitude is rising.
And we've got a belly full of tacos.
Yeah. Everybody's satisfied from lunch, and you just kind of slip into the slow Baja mode, I would say. That's really when it begins, when you start to get dusty, right? And things kind of fall into place.
Did Derek, so you rode with Derek Boycks, who's just an incredible human being. Obviously, he's a pal of yours. He's a pal of mine from my previous car days when I was doing fun stuff at Bring a Trailer, driving the Copper State Rally. He saved my bacon. He came on the trip last year, and I was delighted that he was bringing you back this year. Did Derek make you ride with the windows down?
Up or down, it didn't matter.
Okay.
Usually, they were. If it was up, it was just because there was a cigarette lit.
Okay.
But Derek's a terrific guy and can work on anything on 4 wheels or 2 wheels or 3 wheels for that matter. Anything with an internal combustion engine, this guy can make it run.
Yeah.
So he's a great guy to have along, and we never run out of stuff to talk about. Derek is a terrific guy.
Well, it's not often you get to hear, and a little love fest for Derek, who did, in fact, win the Slow Baja is Right for You award, which made him very, very, very uncomfortable. But Derek, in our mutual love fest, Derek's a dude, and you don't often hear people talk about, well, I was just working on the 1908 Targa Florio winner, who's the Pistons or something like. Don't quote me, card nerds, don't quote me, but I think the Pistons, he said, were 7.5 inches in diameter, which is astonishing. Yeah, so he's that guy. So anyways, he brought you down here, and let's just be honest, in a piece of shit Land Rover Discovery that I think he bought for $2,000 or $3,000 and then did an engine swap in it out of a junkyard, some other one. But he brought that same truck on the trip last year. And what happened? You guys hit a rock pretty early into the trip, and you split the muffler.
Well, I have to note that although from first blush, his 1996 Discovery one looks like a junker, he's had that body off the chassis, and he's gone through the whole thing.
Yeah,
and as you say,
doubt.
He's done an engine swap. So mechanically, it's terrific. But approaching Raul's Rancho, we're on a 2-track, and there's a Dodge pickup approaching us from the other direction, and we all sort of make way. So that means we all pull into a pasture to our left. But a lot of dust is in the air, and also the sun was low in our eyes. So what Derek didn't see was a pretty big rock right underneath the Land Rover.
I'm going to interrupt you. We've got some quads going by because this is San Felipe, and we're sitting outside at the Stella Del Mar's beautiful restaurant Matilde, and we're right on the beach, basically on a deck right above the beach. We've got some quads. This is San Felipe these days, quad side by sides, whatever. It's not really slow Baja here when it comes to motorsport, but anyhow, and back to you. They've ridden down the beach.
So dust in the air, sun in our eyes. Derek's driving, and
Raul's son Ricky is in that big Dodge pickup driving down the driveway, and he was thrilled to see us all, but did not want to run us all off the road. But we did get out of his way because it was a big truck.
Yeah, we pretty much all moved to the left into the pasture, which had been mowed recently. So it was kind of stubble. So we didn't think that there was any danger, but there were some rocks placed along the edge of the road there, and Derek caught one, creased his center muffler, and eventually, I don't know if it was right away, but a hole developed in the muffler. So it sounds like somebody's playing, somebody's playing dice in a tin can.
Yes.
Whenever the car is running, so
yeah,
it's pretty alarming. But actually, vehicle's running just great. It's just an annoying sound.
So let's get back to approaching Raul's ranch.
Yeah.
You've just split your muffler open, but you take that long drive down the driveway after Ricky got out of our hair. Great guy, Ricky, and then we get to the ranch. And then you kind of realize the trip's starting. This is quite a dude and quite a place.
Yeah, Raul's ranch is in a bowl, and it doesn't look like much from the approach, but you're descending, and it's kind of a slow reveal. as you go down the road.
Yeah, it's a great description.
And partly it's because, we're following other trucks and there's dust being kicked up. And over the radio, the warning crackles, horses on the loose, drive slow, use caution. So right away I know this is kind of a riding ranch.
It's a real ranch. It's a real ranch.
It's a real ranch. And as we descend the road, the shadows fall across us because, like I say, we're in this bowl. And we come upon beautiful trees and outbuildings, a tack room with saddles alongside. There's a motorcycle, an adventure bike with UK plates, so I know that there's other travelers here. And then
that German family, that massive overland vehicle.
The German family traveling, by the way, from Canada down to the tip of South America in a giant MAN Volkswagen diesel 4x4, kind of a military chassis, really, with a military radio body on the back, and it's completely custom. Amazing rig. So we know we're like in good company, and then we meet Raul.
Yeah, that guy.
And what a gentleman. Like the quintessential caballero.
Yeah, no, he's a real cowboy. And I think he just loves having people come to his ranch. Honestly, especially people who get like him. And I think this group and Raul have some great similarities, synergies, what have you, that makes people say, like, okay, like, I don't know how. This is my 40th year coming to Baja, so I don't have any fear coming here. I've got lots and lots of experience. My amateur status is firmly in
way in the rearview mirror.
No, but I always say I am an amateur. Like, I'm never turning pro because, like, I may have a lot of experience, but I still don't know anything.
Well, so you maintain your humility.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's a pleasant way of describing it. But, like, I love introducing people to the things I found and the people I've met. And Raul is, a great first stop because he is so gregarious. And the ranch is very clean. And he's very proud that we are there. And he's, there's a lamb working that ranch first thing in the morning who's now on a spit, going to be our dinner, which is wonderful and, whatever. But Rosa's there and Rodrigo's doing the cooking and Rosa's doing the serving. And it's just a beautiful way. It's a beautiful way to say this is Slow Baja.
Yeah, if you can picture a 1910s homestead in Mexico or Alta California, right?
Right.
It's just that. It's cottages with rough mortar and brick.
Yeah.
It's an amazing plancha with guests warming their hands around it in the morning as they have their coffee. It's dogs running and playing, horses being groomed. I mean, it's the whole package, and it kind of transports you back to a simpler time, which is, again, something that Slow Baja is. That's one of your goals, right? I mean, I think so.
I do, and I think it is one of our goals. One of the things, Raul does have Starlink, but I don't tell people he has Starlink.
Yeah.
And so,
right.
It just gets people kind of acclimated to the ranch and gets them off their phone. And then as we're heading out on the next morning, I say, there's a Starlink shed over there if you need to just tell anybody that everything's fine and life is good. But you've already spent, at that point, probably 12 hours off of your phone. So you're starting into the withdrawal process where you're saying, oh, maybe I can live without this thing that I've been, obsessing over for the last 10 years of my life. And I think that's important. I think the digital detox thing is an actual serious thing that we need to address in our lives. I know I am constantly thinking about, oh, got to do this, got to do that, got to make this post and do that, blah, 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 check my email. Blah, blah. It's an addiction. And I just feel like you get to Raul's place. He's so gregarious, so kind and thoughtful. And then the setting is beautiful and the weather we hit beautifully, and get your tent set up, get your cot going, and have a little shorty Tecate beer and start talking to the people who you're going to spend a week with. And you know what? You don't need your phone.
Yeah, and that first night was a terrific bonding. The group that you assembled for this trip was absolutely top-notch. I couldn't have wished for a better group of people to spend time with. I've been four-wheeling for, half my life, and there's always one, right? Not on this trip.
No, you're right. Well, there may be two. I might be related to them. I don't know.
Incidentally, I have to tell you, I asked Raul if I could just set up my cot and sleeping bag in the barn, and he said, yeah, fine, no problem. And I was very comfortable in the barn with the moonlight shining in the door all night. It was terrific.
Well, on that, we're going to take a quick break here for a word from Baja Bound. We'll be right back with Maurice Merrick, the Horsepower Heritage podcast. If you're not following that one, you need to give it a follow. The link will be in the show notes. But if you like thoughtful conversation about cars and the people behind the cars, Maurice is your guy. Horsepower Heritage. You should definitely start with the Slow Baja podcast, and of course that is in the section of my website where you can see featured. I am featured on the Horsepower Heritage podcast. All right, we'll be right back after a word from Baja Bound. Here at Slow Baja, we can't wait to drive our old Land Cruiser south of the border. And when we go, we'll be going with Baja Bound Insurance. Their website's fast and easy to use. Check them out at bajabound.com. That's bajabound.com, serving Mexico travelers since 1994. Hey, big thanks to those of you who've contributed to our Baja Baseball project. We launched our gear deliveries on my winter expedition. Michael and Matthew from Barbers for Baja were along for the ride, and we got to deliver that critically needed baseball gear up and down the peninsula. It was really, truly amazing. And on my last trip, I got to go to the state baseball championships and see some of our alums playing, some recipients of the Baja baseball gear deliveries. And congratulations to Guerrero Negro and Mulahey. The Austineros and the Cardinalitos won silver and bronze at the state championships. Big stuff. And it was really fun to be there and fun to see them. All right, well, please help us continue this vital work. Make your tax-deductible donation at the Barbers for Baja. Click barbersforbaja.org. Click the Baseball in Baja link, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really do. It is so amazingly gratifying to be able to give these kids this chance to keep playing this sport, keep them on the field, keep them out of trouble. Please check it out. Baseball in Baja link at barbersforbaja.org. Thank you. Ready? Get back.
I'm ready. I was born. Michael, hey. I'm like lunch meat. I was born ready, okay?
Yeah, I'm like lunch meat. How did I get to my age and have never heard anybody say that? I'm like lunch meat. I was born ready. You were born sliced and diced and under plastic.
That's it.
Hey, we're back with Maurice Merrick, and we've had a really phenomenal week on the Slow Baja Vintage. And I'm so glad that I urged you to come. I got you and I said, you and Derek are going to do it, and you were in, you were out. Derek was in, he was out. Derek had some friend who was coming that he put a deposit on, and that didn't work out, but you made it. And we're going to sing Derek's praises for just a second here. He's not sitting on the show with us, but he fixed this, he fixed that. He created quite a miracle, taking some spare parts from my truck and making an ignition from an FJ40 of my Mexican team. He made that FJ40's ignition work with a bunch of spare junk from my truck. He truly is a genius. And today you guys had some spice.
Yeah, we did. We were doing a little four-wheeling in what I would call an estuary, a wetlands. And we had a king tide last night because
this is the reason I'm laughing, because, I put in the work.
Yeah.
Pre-run routes, I've eaten the food. I've driven the routes. I don't want any surprises. I drove that route a week ago, and it was dry as a bone. There's something like a 19-foot king tide last night with the full moon, and that thing was wet and miserable. I mean, most of it was amazing.
It flooded the low spots.
Most of it was amazing.
Yeah, it flooded the low spots of our trail today, and let's just say that at least 5 recoveries were accomplished.
Vehicles were stuck.
Like a half mile.
Yeah,
right?
in 1 minute.
Right. And it was
in
great.
A San Felipe minute.
It was terrific. And by the way, at some point today, and of course you're worried about the big picture, which is getting everyone safely to San Felipe for the evening so that we can enjoy our dinner and kind of toast each other and hand out a few awards. But you said to me at one point, I really should check the tides next time. And I thought, no, you don't have to do that. Everyone wants to get muddy. Everyone wants to get stuck. This is how memories are made, right? Like,
there were some memories made today.
About it.
There were some memories made today for sure.
Damn right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you asked me about, we had a little bit of a spicy moment, which was that, one of the things about water crossings and fording in
off-roading,
right, in off-roading, is that you kind of have to have that bow wave going, right, so that you're pushing the water away from your vehicle, particularly if you have a stock air intake and not a snorkel. Well, Derek was doing nothing wrong, but the vehicle ahead of us had left the water kind of just at the right time to have sort of a backwash, and we sucked a little bit of water into his air intake. It didn't get into the engine, but it really confused his mass airflow sensor for a good 10-15 minutes, so that the Land Rover was running very rough. But it worked itself out. He again, Derek is very good. He knows exactly what's going on, can read the vehicle, and he said it'll be fine. We just need to limp along, and that's exactly what we did. So the drama was actually no drama.
Couldn't happen to a better guy. As this Mad Max carnage is going on of like, okay, we're driving through this little river at this stage, basically, 6-inch river that we're driving through, and we can't really go out of it. But as people are saying, oh, I don't want to go through that, I want to go up on the bank and kind of go around it. One stuck here, one stuck there. One makes room for somebody else to get by, and they get stuck. And it's like, wow, wait a second. We've got 3 vehicles down, 4 vehicles, 5 vehicles. It was
at one point
cluster F.
We had 3 stuck at once.
In 10 yards of each other.
Right. And so...
and nobody in the actual road. Right. Everybody was on the edge of the road for some reason, whatever.
Everyone tried to bypass, and
or something,
none of the bypasses
what
worked.
Have you.
And all 3 of those recoveries were sort of triangulated. It was funny. But they all came off without a hitch. One thing I would mention is, for those of you who aren't veterans of off-road driving and recovery, is what really saved us today was a kinetic recovery rope.
Yeah. Yeah, those are pretty cool.
And also soft shackles.
Yep.
So these are items you can look up, but essentially a kinetic recovery rope is a rubber band. It stretches and then rebounds and pulls that vehicle out. And there's a specific weight rating on a kinetic recovery
and
rope.
In this case, it sucked that stuck 64 Land Cruiser FJ45 pickup truck with an LS swap. It's pulled that sucker right out of the muck.
Pulled it right out, broke that suction. Kinetic recovery rope combined with soft shackles means that it's basically a no-risk recovery, because the last thing you want is for something to break, right? It can often be the rope or cable that you're using for recovery. Other times it's the anchor point on either of the vehicles. But when a kinetic recovery rope or soft shackle breaks, it simply falls to the ground. It doesn't
cut somebody's head off.
Right. It doesn't fly in the opposite direction and injure or kill someone. So
you notice I had a lot of people back off of that thing. The only one that was in the impact zone was going to be Nathan.
Absolutely.
Nathan, my trip wrangler, and he's definitely expendable. So if somebody's going to get cut in half from a parted shackle, and then I'd adopt his dog, so it'd be all right.
And that's another thing, which is that, in most events, there's a scrutineering, right? You don't really do a scrutineering on Slow Baja.
No, you don't. No, there's no scrutineering.
You rely on people to be adults and to have a properly set up vehicle.
Well, let's get on to some adulting that we did.
Okay.
We got down the path from Raul's. We had such a fantastic dinner there, and then exited the next morning after a beautiful breakfast. It's just a beautiful drive in and out both places, and he's such a proud Mexican, beautiful ranch, and happy to tell you about his country and his love for his lifestyle. Got out of there, and then we got to, for you, Horsepower Heritage podcast host Maurice Merrick, we got right into the thick of the San Pedro de Matir hill climb, which was kind of interesting. We got up the hill. Well, maybe I got ahead of myself. We got up the hill to Rancho La Concepcion, and then on the way down the next morning, we got into a hold so that the hill climb, the first 5 motorcycles could go by, and we had to hold for that. So we did get a chance to see some hill climbing motorcyclists. I think it must have been their first run. They must probably had a couple of runs to make. I don't know. I'm assuming because the guys that went by us were not at 9 or 10 tenths.
No,
they were
definitely
more like
not.
7 or 8 tenths.
Yeah, they were holding back a little bit. Not quite sure why. We sort of came in, as you say, in the middle of things. But it was fun to watch them go by, and they were glad to have us kind of cheering them on.
But the important thing was getting up to Rancho La Concepcion. So you get all the way up this dirt road, way up this mountain, San Pedro de Matir. This cool kind of learned, erudite hippie couple that runs this ranch, and they're making a fabulous dinner, and they've got lights on the trees, and they've got tables set up for us, and they're so damn nice. And people get up there and we got up there in the dark. Sadly, that was part of some problems that had occurred, but we got up there in the dark, my fault, and we didn't get to see the sunset from their deck. We did get to see it from the road getting there, but they're such wonderful people. And then had a lovely night, and the sun came up, and you're in this beautiful place.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that this was a case of delayed gratification.
Maybe. That's a nice way of putting it. Thank you, Maurice.
Well, I mean, again, you emphasized this, but I'm going to reiterate it, which is that if you're down for Slow Baja, you need to be down for contingencies and unplanned events.
Yep.
And it also kind of separates the wheat from the chaff in terms of participants, because people who are okay with that are going to be good travel companions.
We had a lot of those. On this trip. People who are very good travel companions.
But let me tell you about Rancho Concepcion from my point of view. I mean, you're a great host, but for me to, make camp in the dark, I'm cold, it's been a long day, we've had a long drive. And by the way, not a bad drive. I mean, Derek is a great companion, but
Just work.
we
were tired.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like any road trip, you've got some fatigue factor. And so I make camp. I go pretty much straight to bed after dinner. And I wake up in a small apple orchard, the least expected locale or environment, the least expected environment in Baja California, right? I got apple trees all around me. I walk short distance, I don't know, 200 meters to an overlook where that couple has built a secondary remote cabin that you can rent. It sleeps two, it has a picture window, and it has a terraced wooden deck overlooking the most amazing canyon and then the desert beyond.
Yeah, and then the sea beyond that, or the ocean beyond that.
Right.
Which is astonishing.
It's $1 million view.
Yeah, multi.
So those little surprises kind of made up for a little bit of an arduous day prior.
Yeah, and so then we moseyed on down the hill, and it's got, I think, a 6-kilometer entryway in dirt, which is fun, not quite spicy. I had it in, I think, 4 low just to make sure I didn't get stuck because I was leading the group. And we got up and got down, and we're now heading out, and we got all the way down to San Quintin and took a drive down the beach. People just don't get to do beach drives very often, do they?
No, they don't. And
it's just fun.
Just
fun.
In the U.S., really, Florida is the only place you can sort of do some unbridled beach driving. And we had a bunch of vehicles on a bunch of different tracks at varying speeds. And everyone was responsible, was careful, and considerate of their fellow travelers. And
yeah, it's nice low tide, lots of room.
Yep, lots of room. And, there's a little bit of hooning. That's okay.
Shock.
Right, shock. Yeah. Not unexpected. And it was... The mood was exuberance. Absolute exuberance, because I think we had been through a lot of heat and cold at night, and setting up camp and moving, and all those things are great. But when we hit the beach, it was just this freedom all of a sudden it was just like a collective exuberance. That's
let
the
it
only
rip,
word.
baby.
Yeah, just let it rip. Yeah,
let it rip. Yep. So into camp, which is a pretty cool spot, Terra Peninsular, beautiful nature preserve, and I feel very lucky that we get a chance to stay in a place like that. Waves are crashing right there where we're camping. Fun. I think Chucky did get out and do a little surfing the next morning, and then we got off for breakfast. We had a nice sand drive getting out. Took a little while. The thing that I forgot to even address was John Alderson, who offered up. I reached out to John and said, "Hey, do you know anything about this little seafood shack in La Chorrera? I'd like to talk to the owner about having them host a fiesta for us." And John said, "I would host that for you at my house." So I showed up at John's house with 24 of my friends. It's a pretty nice house. Pretty nice party. Pretty nice staff putting things on. I don't even know if you have to comment on that, Maurice, but I would assume you agree.
I agree, and what I would just say is that the landscape prior to arriving at John's and kind of the immediate environment is volcanic and desolate.
Yeah.
So you don't expect to hop out of your vehicle all dusty and tired and go through a portico into this amazing property and be greeted by a heated pool.
Yeah.
And dive in and have a margarita and splash around and just be reinvigorated. So it was exactly the right thing at the right time.
So that happened.
Yeah.
So then we had this spicy little dirt sandy drive to get into Terra Peninsular, a nice sleep with the sound of crashing waves, up the next day and out the way we came. Lots of sand again, and managed to get everybody through without getting stuck. And La Parcela 12 for our lunch was a stupid, crazy place. Had Enrique, the chef, just slinging this and slinging that, and it was lovely. I won't ask you to comment on what you had, but I think a good time was had by all, and multiple plates were had by most.
I mean, I'll just tell you, I had langostinos, lobster with peppers. It was fantastic. It was totally unexpected. Some beef stew. Our chef was so excited to have us.
Yeah.
He was really proud of his kitchen.
Yeah.
It was a great experience.
Well, I had the pechuga, and I had the chicharrones, and these are all things that he recommended. I had machaca, which was terrific, but these were all things that he pointed to and said, you should try that, you should try this. And it was just, again, a wonderful way to eat. Got down the road. I'm trying to remember how our trip went, Maurice, because it's getting late here. We're into
the wee hours.
The wee hours on Slow Baja, so we're gonna push towards the finish line. But let's talk about getting down to the desert in Catavina. That camp out in the cactus was something.
It was, and I've spent a lot of time in the Sonoran Desert in Arizona and northern Mexico, northern Sonora, Mexico, the state of Sonora. And the landscape is not dissimilar to that, but lots of incredible piles of stone.
Yeah.
And, it's as if a volcano blew and just deposited these amazing rock formations. And I don't know the particular geology.
No, I think it was a massive giant that
Eruption.
just piled them up.
Yeah.
A giant just was playing with pebbles.
A giant of that
could have
nature.
been that.
Oh,
Could
yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, could have.
Could be some alien
Catavina.
overlords,
Catavina.
But, God, what a landscape. And we arrived about an hour and a half before sunset.
We arrived in daylight.
Yeah.
For a change.
Exactly. Plenty of time to set up camp, but your locals had already started a campfire against a huge boulder that reflected the heat of that fire. Remind me of her name.
Linda and her husband.
Linda and Sergio.
Sergio, yeah. It's just lovely.
Linda and Sergio had dinner going, some asada,
carne asada.
some sausage. It was wonderful. We all had time to set up camp, take some excursions out into the rocks. Nathan explained some of the native plants, which are amazing. And by the way, I would say you don't think of this as a forest, but it really is an adapted forest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's an interesting way to, if you think of it that way, it sort of opens your mind up to the ecology there. And then wonderful dinner and a very peaceful rest overnight there. And we woke up, by the way, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning under a blanket of clouds. It was a little bit dewy out.
Yeah, for sure.
But it had kind of insulated us, which was nice.
Yeah. Lovely. And then off to the local cafe there for a fabulous breakfast. And down the road, we ended up going down the one and got on to Dry Lake Chapala. And that was just a scene out of Mad Max. You made such beautiful footage out of that I had a chance to see this morning. Again, I am Slow Baja, and I never grew up doing anything dangerous in my childhood. My dad was pretty buttoned down. We didn't do that stuff. We didn't go fast on our bicycles. I didn't have a motorcycle. I wasn't doing dumb stuff in cars until, I was probably out of the house while I was doing dumb stuff in cars, Dad. I don't think you listened to the podcast, but we got out and pre-ran the entire lake to see how the lake surface was. And once we did our pre-check, we turned around and then said, hey ho, let's go. And people went. People went as fast as they were comfortable going. And I think most people had a pretty damn good time. And there was a few of the folks who did get after it.
Yeah, definitely about 6 or 8 rigs really put the hammer down and made the most of that experience.
And others just pulled off to watch the show. Closed course. Professional drivers do not attempt. Your mileage may vary. Ask your doctor if Baja is right for you. Was in full effect.
All I can say is it was cinematic. You know, you're on a massive dry lake bed. You're on a massive dry lake bed. On the horizon, mountains.
Yeah.
Very rugged mountains. Purples and pinks and oranges on the slopes. And all you see are high horsepower 4x4s cutting the most spectacular rooster tails of dust you've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was epic.
Yeah. And back and forth and having a good time, and nobody ran into anybody or even came close to running into anybody, which was my goal for that. And we took our smiling, dusty faces and boogied on down the road and ended up camping at La Poma in Gonzaga. And that was just, again, got everybody into the water, which was just lovely, over to the Sea of Cortez now. And people got out, got a chance to get in the water, and I thought, again, pre-ran it last week, stayed there last week. I got waylaid by Will, who was down on the end in that big van, who made dinner for us. And when the restaurant staff looked out and saw the only 3 cars there were having dinner together, they just closed the door. So I went up and said, well, these guys are supposed to be open. And I went up and they're like, no, we're not serving anymore. I'm like, damn it, I need to eat your, several things so I know when I bring my group here next week that this was good, this was good, this was good. So it's Baja, it's 7 o'clock at night. Nope, we're closed. Even though, like you're here asking to order. And I get it. So we had a lovely dinner.
Well, I got to hand it to you for the pre-run activity that you do, because it makes a difference on the trip, I think.
I try.
You're smart
whatever.
to do that.
Try.
Now, I got to backtrack for a second and say that when we were on the dry lake bed, Derek's behind the wheel of the Land Rover Discovery. Both of our front windows are down, and he rolls into like 5 donuts at about 4,000 RPM in third gear. Or something like that. Full lock.
I'm glad he has the full skills to do that stuff.
And the cab of his Land Rover is just a dusty mess, and I can't see a thing, and we're spinning, and then he stops and the dust clears, and that's fine. But so you can imagine, but by the time I got to La Poma, the only thing I wanted to do was kick off my boots and get in the Sea of Cortez, and that's exactly what I did.
Which was pretty damn fun. It was a good time was had by all. Again, we have Mitch, the international Fortaleza representative, who's just coming up with a cocktail after another cocktail after another cocktail. We're pouring more Fortaleza here than most of America has seen in the last 3 weeks, and we're pouring it here. And another fabulous dinner. We'll say that. Fish dinner was lovely at La Poma, and then we got out of there, and it was supposed to be the easy button today. And we had this carnage, this carnage of trucks and cars and stuff stuck. We did discuss that earlier, so I'm just going to get you to sum it up for me and take me home, because it's a pretty good week, and you haven't been to Baja for a while. So your perspective on just, you're a car guy. In your core, you're a car guy. We had such great cars. We had wonderful car owners. The people were awesome. I'm not looking for a pat on the back, but I thought the scenery was pretty damn good. Bring it home for me.
I mean, this is the kind of trip that, whether you're a 4x4 aficionado or a veteran traveler, or you enjoy the desert or the beach or the mountains, you're a foodie, doesn't really matter what your bailiwick is, you're going to find something on a Slow Baja journey. And I would add that because the group is not vehicle specific, and this is really important, veteran four-wheelers will understand this. The fact that it's not vehicle specific means you get a really good mix of people, and you learn a lot about different rigs, which is interesting to me. So to bring it home, I would say expect the unexpected. And you asked me something, I think on day 2 or 3. You said, what should someone bring on a Slow Baja trip? And I told you they should bring a good attitude and a sense of flexibility. And that really sums it up. I mean,
yeah,
just enjoy it. It's a journey. It's not always going to go as planned or as you might expect, but that's really the charm of it.
Yeah, some days you don't know what plan A was, but plan B was okay, but plan C was really good. You really knocked it out on plan C.
And some days you might exhaust the entire alphabet.
Yeah, well,
but that's
I don't know
okay.
About that. Speaking of exhausted, I think we are exhausted. And so I want to say thanks for making some time to talk about Slow Baja and your experience on the Slow Baja Vintage. I've never talked to anybody at all on my trips. I'm so delighted to have you here. So delighted to have been on your show and have you on my show, and I think you took over the whole dang thing. But Maurice Merrick, if people want to follow your podcast, listen to what you're doing, and I highly recommend that you do, where's the best place for folks to find you?
Well, the website is horsepowerheritage.com. Instagram the same, and of course on YouTube. I do a lot of different stuff in addition to the podcast. So if you like to look at cool videos of cars and kind of every situation and scenario, you can check it out on YouTube. But the podcast is kind of soup to nuts, a lot of motorsport stuff, an eye on classic cars in general.
And the people behind them.
And
that's what I love.
Yeah, and my tagline is
great people stories.
The people and stories behind the machines, and that's really what it's all about. So, Michael, thanks for having me on. This was such a treat, and what a great week.
Yeah, link will be in the show notes, folks. I think I stole that from Maurice on his podcast because he's so well put together. But we really did have a fabulous week, and it's now about midnight here in Baja. We've got to have one more tequila at the Fortaleza Land Cruiser FJ80 and say goodnight. So, good night.
Adios, amigos.
It's been a good, fun time. Thanks, Maurice.
Muchas gracias, amigo.
We did it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that one. My heaping dose of gratitude goes out to you for still listening at this stage. Do me a solid. You're still listening at this stage. Do me a solid. Get on Apple or Spotify. Drop a 5-star review. Tell people why you like this podcast. Tell people why they should be listening. I appreciate it. It really does help people find the show, and that is important. 150-something shows in now. Please take a second. Review the show. All right. The Slow Baja shop has a fresh batch of t-shirts. It's got a solid selection of hats. The stickers are in, patches, pins, all that stuff. Got a bag or two, canvas bag or two left. So it's the holidays. Show your support. Buy some merch. Keep me going. Keep me doing my thing. You can always drop a taco in the tank too. That always helps. And again, as I come to this point of the show, Mary McGee, Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Famer, she had a friend, Steve McQueen, one of the coolest cats who ever walked this planet. Steve loved Baja, Steve loved Mary, and Steve said, Baja is life. Anything that happens before or after is just waiting. You know, people always ask me, what's the best modification that I've ever made to Slow Baja? Without a doubt, it's my Shieldman seats. You know, Toby at Shieldman USA could not be easier to work with. He recommended a Vario F for me and a Vario F XXL for my navigator Ted, as Ted's kind of a big guy. And Toby was absolutely right. The seats are great and they fit both of us perfectly. And let me tell you, after driving around Baja for over a year on these seats, I could not be happier. Shieldman, Slow Baja approved. Learn more and get yours at shieldman.com.